So we are off to the races once again, ladies and gentlemen. We got him back. We had him booked originally and had a little bit of a scheduling issue. He had some personal stuff going on, so we were more than happy to oblige and reschedule because, this show, Everything Combat, ladies and gentlemen, is about life being a fight. And we all have our fight in life, and this man is no exception because what more of a fight in life can you have than fighting off a mother grizzly bear as she protects her cubs? He is
Twice.
also... Twice. He
Yes.
is also the proprietor of Skyblade Knives. We're going to get into that. Mr. Todd Orr is joining us on the show today. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys today?
Fantastic. No complaints. Every day above ground's a good day.
That's awesome.
Well, I mean, Bozeman, Montana, man, you're up there in God's country. That just beautiful,
It really
beautiful,
is.
without a doubt.
Yeah, it's a wonderful country up here. We've got the mountains, we got all the blue ribbon, trout streams and rivers, and all the animals. A little bit of everything.
So growing up in that area, you're obviously an outdoorsman. I mean, you're no stranger to the outdoors. Tell us about, growing up out there. What's some of the kind of stuff you get into? When I think of that kind of area, I'm thinking of the movie Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, and you know what I mean? I'm sure you've probably seen it. So talk to us about living up there in Big Sky Country.
Well, I grew up in a little town of Ennis, right on the Madison River. And actually, the first day we got into town, we were waiting for the moving van to show up. And Dad said, "Jump in the Jeep and let's go down to the river." And I was 7 years old, and he put a fly rod in my hand and taught me how to fly fish before we even had moved into our house. And that was kind of the start of my outdoor life of just hiking and camping and dirt biking, snowmobiling, hunting, fishing, the whole works, in the doors, outside every weekend, every evening, doing as much as we could in the woods.
You can relate to the kids today who just can't put these phones down, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Last thing they want to do is go outside.
Bozeman is kind of in the southwest side of the state, but Montana, I'll just tell you right now, quick, is my favorite place in the world. The first time I went there, I went to Kalispell and Whitefish, and couldn't believe my eyes because I'm from Iowa, which is obviously fairly flat and nothing but cornfield and timber. And when I saw the mountains in Montana and the pine trees, and got off the plane in Kalispell and smelled the pine trees, I could smell it instantly. I went, I'm literally home. I do not want to leave here. If I wasn't married, I would have had all my stuff shipped to me and would have never come back.
Yeah,
And I love Iowa.
it's a beautiful place. It's a place you definitely want to grow up and spend your life if you can.
And very harsh at times. It can get pretty ugly in the winters there. Obviously, a lot of wildlife to deal with, which you've encountered. So, what do you do for a living now?
Well, I work for the Forest Service, and I do all their trails engineering.
Okay.
So any new trails design we're doing, any new trail reroutes, repair, I do all the design, survey, staking, flagging, GPS, the whole works, start to finish. So that's my career job. And then, of course, building custom knives is a side business, which is kind of turned into a second full-time job, actually.
Now, taking care of those trails is not an easy job. I've done a little bit of trail running, something that I absolutely love. I love being in the mountains, and the work that they do. I've seen a lot of guys out there working. I mean, there's a lot of work to keep those trails open.
There is, yeah. Every year you've got a lot of timber that's blowing down across them. You've got erosion every spring from the snow runoff, and we got crews that get up there and cut all that out and repair it. And I kind of work on the engineering side of it. So when we're doing a new trail or rerouting a trail around a bad area, I'm doing all of that initial survey, the design, and then like with the contractors, working with them until the trail's finished.
Okay, very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
So
were you?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, champ.
I was just going to say, were you working at the time when you ran into Mama Bear?
I was not. I had been working that fall just like day and night just about. I had a lot of hours we're trying to put in to get all of our trail stuff done before the snow came in. And I finally had a day off of work. And so I'm like, yes, I can go do my own thing. And of course, I'm going back to the woods, but at least it was on my own time. And it was a Saturday morning. And I just wanted to get out and scout for some elk before the main hunting season and just see what was in the area. So I just wanted to be up on top of the mountain above timberline at daylight and just get some photos and get some exercise.
And this is when the bears in that area clearly are active, haven't hibernated yet, still eating away.
Yeah, this is October 1st, 2 years ago. And so it's, the bears are eating as much as they can, trying to find as much food as possible before they go into hibernation. And they'll go right into December, even into a couple feet of snow, trying to eat like carcasses or anything they can find left over from a hunter and anything to get food and fat on their body before they hibernate.
So this area is an area that you obviously were very familiar with. This isn't like foreign land or anything. You had been into this area probably many times before, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I've been in that area. I've hunted there. I've worked in the area. It's right in my homeland where I've grown up for years and spent my life in the woods in the same kind of a situation. And I see bears, probably a dozen bears every year, mostly black bears, an occasional grizzly bear, but they usually run the other direction. They maybe look at you and take off, or they have nothing to do with you. They're not interested in people.
Well,
So, I mean,
this day was different.
at that time of year, I mean, if the bears are still gorging or trying to get as full as they can before they go into hibernation, I mean, if you run into a male grizzly at that point where he's still really hungry and he wants to gorge before he goes into hibernation, we wouldn't be talking to you potentially right now. Am I right in assuming that?
Well, most bears do not want to eat somebody. It's usually the threat is a bear that's protecting its food source,
Right.
or a sow with cubs, or you've just surprised a bear. You've got too close to it, it didn't hear you coming, and now you're in its space and it just attacks to defend itself.
Right.
It's rare that a bear is actually going to stalk and try to eat somebody or kill somebody. So, I mean, it happens, but it's rare.
So
I think the epigenetics of bears, the mothers being afraid of human beings, and I'm sure that carries over to the cubs into their lives as they get bigger, and so it's something that they've learned to fear most of the time, right? Is humans.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something they really want to deal with. I mean, they have a natural fear of humans, and I think the last 20 years, with more bears out there and more people out there, they are getting more accustomed to running into people on the trails, and they're getting used to people. And there's people that are leaving food around their campsites, and I think that just gets those bears kind of accustomed to the people, and I think the fear is starting to diminish in bears nowadays.
Okay.
So they're having more and more encounters.
A certain level of kind of habituation.
Yes.
Kind of removes that fear. So that day, I mean, obviously, these are lands you had terrained before. What was different about that day? Like you said, you've seen bears plenty of times. What was different this day?
Well, it was just another day, and I decided to try to get up about an hour before daylight, hit the trailhead, and try to get up and look for some elk up in the high country. And I hiked up in the dark about 3.5 miles, and I just stepped out into an opening, and just right at daylight. And on the other side of that opening, there was a sow grizzly with 2 cubs, and she steps out about the same time. We see each other at the same time, and immediately she turns and runs up the ridge and disappears. So I'm thinking, okay, this is normal for a bear. They don't want to interact with a human. She's getting out of here, going to protect her cubs. And so I figured I'd just wait a minute and then head on up the trail the other direction and would never see her again. And so I waited probably about a minute and didn't see her. So I decided to hike up the trail the other direction. And I took a few steps and heard a noise. And as I turned and looked over my left shoulder, she had circled around the ridge, came in behind me and probably got my wind, and then just came off the ridge in a full charge. And here's a grizzly bear that can run 35 or 40 miles an hour. She's coming downhill. She's got her ears laid back, and she's just flying through the brush at me, just 40 miles an hour, just like that. I'm like, whoa! I'm just surprised, thinking this is going to be a bluff charge, but I just instinctively pulled my bear spray, pulled the safety clip out just in case, looked back up, and now she's at 30 feet. She'd covered that 35 or 40 yards in about 2 seconds. Crazy.
So did you hit her with the spray? Were you able to get her?
Yeah, so when I realized that this is the real deal and she's not bluff charging, I just had the bear spray in my hand, safety out, and I just gave her a full blast in the face. But just her momentum and her speed just carried her right through that cloud of spray.
Right.
And it took a couple seconds for her to affect her, and her adrenaline's going as well, I'm sure. And I just turned and went down on my face, my arms behind the back of my head to protect my neck and my vitals, and she immediately was on top of me and bit me 5 or 6 times in my right arm and shoulder. And then she started coughing from that bear spray and just took off. And just that quick, it was like the entire ordeal was like 5 seconds, and all of a sudden she's gone, disappeared back into the brush somewhere. And I'm like, pick myself up and look down, and I've got a bunch of puncture wounds and bleeding. But I'm surprised. I'm like, wow, I'm alive. I just survived a bear attack, a grizzly attack. So I said, okay, just got to get down, head down the trail and get to the hospital and get some stitches, and kind of figured that was the end of it.
So at this point, you had only been attacked on your arm, basically, your rib cage in the back or anything too?
No, just my right arm and one bite in my shoulder.
Okay.
Probably a half a dozen bites.
How long did it take you to decide to get up after she went away?
When she bit me and took off running, I heard her run off through the brush. So almost immediately I got up and looked and saw, and she disappeared over the ridge. And I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here. Just head down the trail, just assuming, okay, the bear spray worked. It took a second or two, but it worked, and she's not coming back. And so I felt pretty confident that that was the end of it.
And you started heading down the trail. How far down the trail did you get before she decided to revisit you?
It was probably about 5 minutes down the trail, so a few hundred yards, and the trail kind of veers and crosses the creek. And so I was just about to cross the creek, and so I couldn't hear much because of the noise from the water. And all of a sudden, heard some little snap of a branch or something got my attention, and I turned, and she was 10 feet behind me, coming wide open again. And I had bear spray in my hand. I had a pistol right here. There was no time. I just caught her out of the corner of my eye, and she had knocked me down. And this time she is mad. And immediately she's on top of me. First bite was in my left forearm, and I heard the crunch of the bone. And she ripped a couple tendons and muscle and nerves out. And that pain and that initial impact of that bite just made me kind of wince. And I made this noise like, oh, and pulled my arm away. And that movement and sound just triggered like a frenzy. And she went crazy and just picked me up and started shaking me. And then she'd slam me down, face down into the dirt. And pick me back up, and then she'd bite me in the shoulder, and then she'd bite me in the arm, and then she'd like shake me and throw me, and I'd just be like roll into the dirt, and would have to like pick myself back up, try to roll back over on my face and protect my vitals and my neck as much as I could. And this just continued for it seemed like hours, but it was a couple minutes. And at one point, a claw caught the side of my head and ripped a 5-inch gash in my scalp. And so my eyes filled with blood. And so I'm just helpless there, just get like a rag doll, just getting shaked around and just stomped on and slammed into the dirt, and just a crazy situation.
Well, now, I mean, when I saw the pictures of your scalp, which I remember when this happened, I saw it on the internet. It was all over the internet. Everybody saw it. Mm-hmm. It looked like she basically scalped you. I mean, it was like a giant flap of your scalp that was peeled back, right?
Right. Yeah, it was a 5-inch gash right above my ear on the side of my head, and when it just ripped that open, my whole scalp just kind of flopped over my ear, and I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that I had a cut on my head, and my eyes were filled with blood. And
a cut on my head.
Yeah, I had no idea what level it was, but it's kind of what was the eeriest part of the whole thing is. After it, at one point she'd bit me in the side, and that kind of turned me, and my eye, I looked right out of the corner of my eye, and I saw her face just a foot away right there looking at me. And I just immediately pulled back to that position, face down, curled up in a ball, and just trying to protect my face and my vitals. And I just kept telling myself over and over, it's like, don't move. She's going to leave. She's going to go back and check on her cubs. And I just knew that if I, fought back or made any noise or tried to do anything, I would be a threat, and she would just keep chewing on me. And to survive, I had to play dead.
So during the second attack, I mean, were you trying to feel for your gun or your spray to hit her again? I mean, or were you just, look, I just have to stay alive and stay on my face? Or
yeah, the bear spray had been knocked out of my hand then, and I had the pistol right on a shoulder holster, so it was really easy to get to. But in that situation, I got my hands locked behind the back of my head, and my arms are kind of pulled into protecting the sides of my face. And I thought, if I lose that position right there for just a second, and she flips me over on my back and stands on me, it's done. She can just pin me to the ground, and she's just going to chew my face off or my throat or my vitals or something. Right. So I remember thinking about grabbing the pistol, but I'm like, don't lose that position you have right now. Right now, you're safe. I mean, she's chewing on your back and your shoulder and your backpack, but she's not getting to your vitals. So I just held that position, and then she just kind of stopped. And that was probably the eeriest part, was her sniffing the back of my head, and I could hear and feel her sniffing, and then she would kind of sniff and then bite. and then she'd sniff again and then bite me in the shoulder or the arm. And just like, I think just testing to see if I was incapacitated or if I was dead, if I was a threat any longer.
Right.
And I remember I couldn't feel any pain. After that first bite, I just blocked out all the pain because that will to survive, you just know that you can't scream or move. But like all my other senses were heightened. I can remember how much she stunk, just that smell of death, of something she'd been rolling in or eating. And then just hearing, you know, those big canine teeth are 1.5 inches long and they're going right into the muscle of your arm, burying in there. And you can hear that. It makes a sound of a tooth just crunching into muscle. So I remember all of that, but I don't remember any pain associated with it after that first bite.
Jeez.
Wow.
So now, pretty crazy.
So
yeah, just a little bit.
How long would you say the second attack lasted?
Oh, like it probably was just like a minute or two. I mean, it seemed like forever, but just a minute or two. She bit me probably 25 times on my right arm and shoulder, bit me once in the side, you know, raked my head open, and then, you know, ripped my backpack and everything and just kind of thrashing me around. But after I just played dead and didn't move, and then she decided that was it, and she just stood on me and would kind of sniff me and bite me a little bit, and then she just stood there for like 30 seconds and it was just dead quiet, and I'm just like, what's going to happen? I'm just kind of waiting for that next bite again, and then she just stepped off and disappeared. And I wasn't sure. It's like, is she 10 feet away watching me, and if I move she's gonna, you know, attack me again time. Or yeah.
How long did you wait her after that the second time, because she hit you again?
Right. Yeah. So I laid there probably 30 seconds just waiting to see if I could hear if she was still there or not. And then I got to thinking, if she goes over the ridge, checks on her cubs, you know, she probably sent them up a tree or somewhere safe. If she goes and checks on her cubs, they're fine. She'll probably come back to see if I'm still there, if I'm still a threat in the area. And I thought, I got to get out of here or protect myself or something. So I really slowly reached one hand down I had them behind my head, reached my hand down and slowly reached under to reach for my pistol, and it wasn't there. It had been ripped off during the attack. So now my bear spray's gone, my pistol's gone, my arm's broke, I can't see anything, I'm completely helpless. So I reached up really slowly and kind of wiped the blood from each eye, and then I looked each direction just really slow, and she wasn't anywhere in sight. And so I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here. And I saw my pistol laying about 10 or 15 feet away. I just dove for my pistol, pulled it out of the holster, hammer back, I'm ready in case she's coming back. And she wasn't there. She was gone. So I said, okay, it's time to get out of here. I got to get some distance between her and I and head down the trail and just get away from her. So I picked up my stuff, and my left arm was just worthless with the tendon damage, and I had 2 tendons ripped off that were sticking out, a lot of muscle and nerve damage. So I couldn't really use it at all. So I just tucked my pistol under my left armpit so I could get to it really easily, had the bear spray in the other hand, and just took off down the trail, had about a 3 or 4 mile hike to get out of there.
Jeez. So how far did you...
blood did you lost by the time you got out, by the time you got to the hospital?
Well, I had about an hour hike, and as I got down, 10 or 15 minutes down the trail, and I felt pretty safe that I wasn't going to get attacked again. It's like she's clear back up there with her cubs, and I'm safe to get out of here. So I stopped for 30 seconds and checked my wounds to see if I had any, severed arteries or something I needed to do tourniquet or bandaging, and that was just mostly puncture wounds, and it was still bleeding and soaking through my shirt, but I knew I wasn't going to bleed out. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to continue down until I get to the truck, and then if I have to there, I can do some more first aid. And so I think I stopped twice on the way down, just checking my wounds and making sure that, I'm not going to bleed out on the way home, hiking out of there. And everything was okay. It took me about 45 minutes to get down to the truck. And by the time I got to the parking lot at the trailhead there at the vehicle, I felt completely safe at that point. It's like, okay, I made it out of the woods. The bear's not following me. I didn't run into any other bears or mountain lions. And I'm not going to bleed to death. I've just got to have some surgery on my left arm and get stitched up, but I'm going to survive this. And that's when I felt completely relieved and was like, wow. At that point, I probably could have, laughed about it at that point or joked about it because I was alive. And I knew I was
you had the presence of mind to go Facebook Live. Talk about that.
It wasn't actually Facebook Live. I just I just took a video. Yeah. I got back to the trailhead, and the first thing I was thinking was, if someone else shows up here on Saturday morning to go bow hunting, it was during bow season, and they run right into this same bear, she's probably going to attack them as well. So I thought I needed to write a note and put on the bulletin board. So I'm trying to get in my truck and get a little sticky note and a pen out and write something. And, my left arm's useless, and I'm dripping blood on the note with the right hand. It's like, okay, this isn't
that makes it authentic.
Right.
Authentic note.
So I gave up on that idea, and I'm like, okay, time to head to the hospital. And I thought, well, there's a couple buddies, good friends of mine, that at the end of the weekends, we always kind of share our hunting stories. And yeah, what did you see? How was your day? And I thought I better do a quick video to show these guys and just to share it. I had kind of a crazy weekend. So I'm like, well, still, I got another 30 minutes to the hospital. Another 30 seconds isn't going to matter. So I took a couple photos and did a quick 30-second video and then headed on down the road to town.
That bad. So by the time you got there, I mean, how long did they have to work on you to put everything back together?
That was about a 30-minute drive to the hospital, and I ran into a rancher on the way there, and he was out at his mailbox, and I flagged him down and asked him if he could call the hospital and just give him a heads up that I was coming into town. And he asked if I needed a ride, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to go into shock, and I don't want to get blood all over your truck as well, so I'll drive myself on in. And so by the time I got to the hospital, there was a sheriff's officer and a doctor and a nurse waiting out at the emergency entrance for me. And so I pulled in, and I couldn't, by this time, it'd been a couple hours since the attack, and all my wounds are just, really, swollen up and sore, and I can't hardly move, and I couldn't get my truck into park. So the sheriff came over, got the truck into park for me, and I couldn't get my seatbelt off. And so he helped me get the seatbelt off, and he's like, God, I'm surprised you took the time to put a seatbelt on. I'm like, well, I just survived 2 bear attacks. I don't want to die in a car wreck on the way to the hospital. True. So, but anyway, so then I walked into the hospital, and I think everybody had heard about it in the hospital now. So everybody that worked there, and I think even some of the patients were kind of lined up along the corridor as I walked in to see what a bloody mess I was. And so they took x-rays, and then took about 7 hours of a doctor kind of on each side, putting stitches in on each wound and stitching my head up and trying to figure out what was wrong with my left arm. And took most of the afternoon to get me all stitched back up.
Well, and the fact that you had, filmed yourself, taken some pictures for, the occasion, then drove yourself to the hospital, turned down a free ride because you didn't want to bleed on the person's truck, put your seatbelt on, did all this other stuff. I mean, that tells you, all our listeners, we have a pretty good crowd of listeners, the difference between a guy from Bozeman, Montana, and somebody from LA or New York.
Well,
big difference between somebody from Bozeman, Montana, and a major metropolitan area, because I don't know what somebody like that would have done. They would have completely lost their mind.
Well, I think most people, just being in a bear attack, all of a sudden you've had 400 pounds of fur and claws and teeth coming at you, and you're just your first instinct is to scream and run, try to get away from it, which is the wrong thing. You don't want to run from a bear. So I think that's, having grown up in Montana in bear country, I've had classes, I've read the books, I've talked to people, and I've been around bears, and it's like there's things that you do and don't do. And knowing that and having thought about it and practiced, your bear spray, pulling it out of the canister or out of the holster, those things become muscle memory. So then when you are in that attack situation or a surprise situation, you react without thinking about it. You don't have to, I didn't remember thinking, oh, pull your bear spray. I just did it automatically because that was the habit that I'd practiced and what I'd always thought. And I think that's what saved my life. And that's what I'm trying to tell people out there. It's like you can't just go to the store, buy your bear spray, go hike into Yellowstone Park and expect to, take care of a bear. It's like you have to think about the situation, the bear behavior, the bear identification, safety tips, what to do, what not to do, and practice doing it.
So do you give a lot of speeches to people on bear safety now?
I do quite a few. I've probably done, 40 interviews maybe in some different groups I've talked to, and written a few things for a couple different magazine articles and that sort. So not a lot, but I do quite a bit.
How long did it take you to get back out, doing what you love?
Well, like I said, I grew up here in Montana. My life is in the outdoors, and plus my job as well. So I knew I had to get back out as soon as possible. And after the surgery on my left arm, I had to wear a brace to keep my wrist back and tendons from tearing out. And I had to wear that brace for 6 weeks. And so I finally got the brace off, and there were still 4 days left in hunting season. So I said, okay, I got to try to give out and fill my elk tag and get some elk in the freezer still.
Nice.
So I actually went back to the same place where I was attacked and went back with a buddy and told him the story as we stood on the spot right there. And I hunted that area 2 days and a couple other areas and didn't see any bears. So I felt, that was good. But definitely is different, just being out there now. And I'm always prepared. I got the pistol, I got the bear spray. I'm really paying attention to hopefully avoid any situation again. But it's different. It's definitely I'm more anxious, and my head is like on a swivel looking all the time just to make sure that I don't walk in too close to something and get caught in that situation again.
Yeah, I mean, after this happened, did you have any of those, as you were falling asleep, jolting visions and feelings of that happening, waking you up at night?
I didn't have any bear dreams or nightmares for like a year and a half. And I've probably had 3 or 4 since then. I think the more I've gone out and talked about it with people, it just brings more back into your mind. But everybody's always asked that. Like, did you have nightmares and all this? And
I would think,
I never did. I was so lucky not to. And so now I occasionally have one now and then, but it's far enough away that it doesn't bother me. And every day that I go back in the woods and I don't get attacked by a bear, it's a little bit easier and a little more comfortable.
A little therapy.
Yeah. Well, and then obviously there's so what are the nature of the dreams? I mean, being attacked or running from one or what?
Yeah, being like in a situation where you're surrounded by bears coming at you.
Ooh.
And usually it was sow with cubs. There was like 3 sows all with cubs one time, and I was trying to get to a building to hide or something like that. Or another time I was in a cabin, and a lot of times it's like trying to help other people. It's like, oh, I see kids outside on a swing set. I saw a bear go by the cabin, so I need to get out there and protect them. And I remember like trying to find my gun in the drawer in the closet or in a dresser drawer, and it's not there or something, those kind of things. And
wow.
You're almost like panicked, like I need to go help somebody. I got to take care of the situation. I know what to do, but there's always some obstacle that's keeping you from doing that.
So were you a wrestler?
No, I never was a wrestler. I mean, a little bit in high school, but not really, no.
Yeah, I was just wondering with you you talked about keeping position. I figured, well, maybe he wrestled a little bit. He's pretty durable, obviously, if you can deal with this. So maybe that had a little bit to do with it, but probably just a rugged Montana boy, huh?
Yeah, I think just knowing what to do and knowing that you got to protect your vitals in your face. And I just knew that if that bear flipped me over, and that'd be the end of me. And so I just used every bit of strength that I had to just focus on staying face down and protecting my vitals. And every time she would throw me or roll me, I would instantly roll back to that position and just hold as tight as I could.
Luckily, you stayed conscious, didn't get knocked out by any of the swats to your head with the paws.
Yeah, I got very lucky there for sure.
Wow.
And now, I've only heard of one other, at least grizzly attack. An ultra runner was running, teenage boy was running in an ultra marathon, 100-mile run in Alaska, and he was actually killed and eaten by a male grizzly, I believe. But I haven't heard of any other grizzly attacks. Have there been other grizzly attacks in Montana since this?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I think there's been a couple since mine. Definitely some charges and bear spray use and people shooting at bears. Probably 3 or 4 every fall that I hear about.
Wasn't that Timothy Treadwell up that way?
It was up in Alaska, I believe,
okay,
where that happened. Yeah. But there's definitely, like every fall around here, there's 3 or 4 attacks or, situations where someone's bear sprayed or, bear or been charged or something like that. It's more and more common now. More people in the woods and more grizzly bears out there.
Right. And I'm wondering if it's people, is it mostly Montanans or is it tourists? Or, I mean, because tourists are obviously going to be pretty naive to the dangers of bears.
Yeah, most of the time it seems like it's hunters. It's like especially during bow season, because the guys are out there in camouflage and they're out there in camouflage. They're sneaking along and they're cow calling or trying to talk like a cow, and call a cow in or a bull in. So they're sounding like a calf or a cow, and they got a bear coming in thinking it's food. And that's commonly it's a bear. It's the bow hunters that are having issues. And I think both, out-of-staters and locals is just as much. I think this time in that fall is the worst time of the year.
Wow.
Yeah, very dangerous. So, I mean, we're not seeing people get eaten. Has anybody been eaten up there?
I have not heard of anybody getting eaten. No.
Because I think of the railroad days in India, the legendary story of the 2 tigers. They were
lions.
Yeah, the lions.
Yeah. Of the lions, they were hunting the railroad workers. I don't know how many they killed. Over 100, I think. Railroad workers that got snagged and eaten, huh?
Right. Yeah. It's a little bit different around here. Usually, if a bear attacks somebody, usually it's a defense thing. You're a threat to them. They're going to attack you. They're going to leave. And if you can play dead and hold out for a minute or two, you've got a good chance of surviving. If it's a black bear, they say that you should fight back against a black bear because it may want to, especially if it's acting like a predatory type eating or wanting to kill you, you got to fight back. But a grizzly, you have no chance. So you got to play dead, ride it out, and hope for the best.
I mean, I've seen some black bears that are big, let alone grizzlies. So that's either one you're getting your ass kicked.
Any of them can tear you apart for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely not ideal. And you firsthand testimony, man, very compelling stuff. I just can't even imagine. So talk to us a little bit before we let you slide, man. Skyblade Knives. What's the impetus of that, and how long you been into cutlery?
I've been building custom knives for about 32 years. 1987 I started.
Wow.
And it's kind of turned into a second full-time job. And I use the best stainless steel that's available, S35 VN stainless, and I've got a lifetime warranty. I do all my own heat treating and tempering. I've got a number of different, exotic hardwood handles that I use, and probably 30 or 40 designs, and they're made to use. They're designs that I've come up with that are like good skinning knives or hunting knives. I do some kitchen steak knives, carving sets as well. And it's something that a lot of people actually take them out and use them. They hold an edge well. They've got excellent strength. A lot of people, they look so good. They're given as gifts or awards or retirement gifts or Christmas. And so I've been doing that for 32 years now, and kind of keeps me busy in the shop a lot.
So we can go to skybladeknives.com to find those?
Yep, skybladeknives.com. My website's about 20 years old and outdated, but you can take a look at the knives on there and give me a call or my email. It's all on the website. And
you ship all over the U.S.?
You can find me on. I do, all over the world. I think I've up to about 14 countries around the world I've sold knives to now.
Nice.
So do you have any knives, any of your knives laying around close to you?
Well, not close to me. I'd have to go in the other room and to do that. But
you got, next time you do one of these, you have the product in your.
I should, yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely should.
But he's got a nice T-shirt though. I'm digging the
T-shirt. Check it out on my website.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying you got a nice shirt on though. You obviously sell T-shirts as well.
Yeah. Got my Skyblade Knives shirt there, a little advertising. So
absolutely. Skybladeknives.com. Wow, champ, you got anything left for this man? And I do mean man. This is the manliest man. This is puts the capital in man, doesn't he?
Yeah. And thank you so much for your time, sir. And inspirational story for people that, that's people with everyday, pain in the asses. That's pretty minor compared to being attacked by a grizzly twice in one day.
Right,
so,
right.
People out there, our listeners need to suck it up and take this guy as an inspiration for surviving a situation like that in stride. I mean, you obviously you harbor no ill will towards any bears or anything like that. It's just a mama protecting her babies.
Yeah,
right?
I just was in the wrong place, wrong time, wrong bear, and she got me. But I'm just happy to be here to tell the story, and glad I survived it. Hoping I can avoid it next time.
All right.
Wow. Appreciate your time, sir. This has been Todd Orr, SkybladeKnives.com, a true story of survival from a true man up there in Big Sky Country. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, buddy. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time.